Welcome in, everybody. Happy St. Patrick's Day. We are about to start our DR650 tier maker list. I almost said 2025 there. I hesitated for just a moment because I don't think this is going to change much year to year, but it is something that I wanted to show you. Um, One thing that I notice a lot of creators doing is, and it does not matter what bike they buy, a lot of these people buy these new model bikes that come out, these content creators, and within a month of having them, they've got $2,000 to $3,000 worth of kit on the bike. And it doesn't matter if it's a 701, a new 690 KTM, or it doesn't matter what it is. It could be a T7. They deck them out. But one of the philosophies that I've had with the DR650, and I'm not saying I'm better because of this, but I've taken it easy with the bike. I've slowly over time figured out what I needed. And there were some things that were immediate and some things that surprised me when I got them that I didn't put on for a long time. But if you're new out there and you picked up a DR650 or new to the DR650 rather, and you're out there and you're saying, hey, like, what kind of stuff would improve here? First, before you do anything, ride it. Ride it for a little while. Um, I think if you're watching a video and you see a content creator and they've had the bike for a month and they're telling you to go spend $2,000 on it, I think you should see how you feel first before you go spend that money. But this tier list, S tier is going to be your top rated, and D tier is going to be your lowest rated. Now, just because I put an item into the D tier rank does not mean that it's a bad item. It just means that the improvements are somewhat negligible. They don't necessarily have to be done per se. And then an S tier is something that has a dramatic change. Um, a lot of what you're going to see today will probably be an A tier. And if you disagree with me, which I really hope there are some people that have, it's not even a disagreement, but just other opinions. If you have other opinions or if you have other accessories, wear that comment section out. That's what it's there for. I would love for engagement on the channel, especially in that comment section. And if you're not a member of the channel, just click subscribe, that little bell, have it go off every time. But let's go ahead and get started. So in our tier maker list, I'm going to click on carbs. Oh, not going to click on that, but carbs. Carbs, I know people would love for me to put this in the S tier category, but it's squarely an A tier mod. It does make a significant, and we saw this in, what, 2 videos ago, that it does make a very significant change. But there, within the carburetor world, are varying opinions. Um, with your stock carb on a DR650, there is there's talk of your stock BTS or BST40 going up to 12,000 in elevation. Now it's lean from the factory. It's jetted incredibly lean. So at sea level where I live, your pipe will glow orange. And I also have a video about that. So jetting, you with a carburetor, it allows you to change that. Now you can change your jetting obviously with your OEM carb, or you can get your pumper carb. Now there's gonna be vacuum carb, pumper. There's a also the Electron carb, which is the one that I want to try because it's been described to me as a poor man's fuel injection. But long story short, I have these at A tier because you can buy the bike and your fuel mileage, I've heard that it changes, but it's not necessarily something that you need to go and change immediately. Will it improve the performance of the bike? Dramatically in the case of Morgan's bike. Um, let's move on though. And when I do, by the way, when I do get Electron down the road, a long time down the road, I will make a wonderful video about that. Exhaust. Now, this is also something that, now where I put this may be a little bit controversial because I've debated, should it be a B tier or an A tier? Do loud pipes save lives, right? Do we want back pressure or not? We know Yamaha has a system that at low RPMs creates back pressure and at high RPMs reduces it. So With the exhaust, we know we're reducing it. So it does reduce weight on the bike and it does create a better sound, but you don't need it. To go off road, the bike's already going to have a spark arrestor in it. So you're not going to get harassed by a game warden on trails. I do think that the bike sounds much better, and even at idle, it's a tremendous improvement, and it does make the bike lighter. But it's one of those things where you look at the cost versus the benefit, and it's sort of a luxury to be able to add it, and it's not much of a must do. It's not going to get, it complements the carburetor's performance because you're going to have air, fuel, and exhaust. But I don't know that it's necessarily an A tier. Doesn't quite get there yet. Now, here's something. These foot pegs, I have the Wirtz wire foot pegs, and I'm actually going to put them with B with the exhaust. And that is simply because they benefited me by going to the down and back peg and also your foot not slipping off. Those rubber mounts, you can take them out on your stock pegs, but you still need that surface area too. But having the adjustability for that, I would say it's somewhere in the neighborhood of having a good exhaust would be having good foot pegs. But it feels much more comfortable standing, and it doesn't feel like you're standing on a piece of rebar when you do stand up. Um, anyway, that's really about all I have for foot pegs there. This right here. Now, you don't need to make this mod immediately, but God, can it get you out of a pinch if you're somewhere. And that's the 6.6 GV, or sorry, not GV, a Cherubies fuel tank. Now, I have the 5.3, but I've seen a lot of RTW videos where this thing has come through and saved the day, where they have had to fuel swap. They use fuel for other things on a double petcock setup, but your fuel range right out of the gate is, I was going to reserve at about 105-ish miles. This switches that. I go to reserve at about 190, and that is even 200 sometimes, but that is doubling my fuel capacity, doubling my range. It can get you out of a bind if you and your buddy, one of you is short on gas, if you need fuel to get a campfire going, or just a little bit of fuel to clean a part off or something like that. There's so many ways that this can come in clutch. And not only that, but the tank itself is much lighter than the stock tank and has a higher volume capacity. I also like the aesthetic effect on the bike. It does a lot of things, but it's an S tier mod in my book for sure. The only drawback that I've noticed is obviously you can't have stickers stick to it. It doesn't have uh, it's off gassing all the time, so you're not going to be able to put like graphics kit stickers on it. Now, people do it anyway. Upshift Online actually has a really awesome looking graphics kit that they put on there. I'm planning myself to get a graphics kit for my DR eventually. I think they're like $100, but I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try my damnedest to get it to stick on there because it just looks badass. But the tanks, there's so many reasons why they are an incredible mod. The next one, brush guards or hand guards, A tier, solidly A tier. The ones you get from the factory are like, they call it the elephant ear style. There's no metal in front of them. They're solely for wind protection. But I notice a lot of dealers, the way they set the bikes up, they can kind of get complacent, like the guy that's in the parts department or doing the bike setup. And I noticed that the little elephant ear hand guards, like when you go fast enough, the wind started to push them back onto my hands, like literally onto where I've got to push that forward to let the clutch out. So I went with the Cherubies hand guards. And keep in mind, I don't have everything on this tier list, by the way, but I do have a Cherubies hand guards. That way you get that nice aluminum frame in the front. So if something big impacts the front of that, it's not going to smash your hands. You're also protected from the wind. it's a major aesthetic improvement on the bike. And you can get, if you get the Acherbys ones that I got, the X Factor, I think you have like 5 color options. And I went Batman style with mine. I went for a black bike. I had to throw some yellow ones on there. But that's solidly an A. The high bar. This is a C. I know people are going to lose their minds when they hear that, right? Because your factory 7/8 is so brittle, but you can still, with your factory bar, put Rock's anti-vibe risers. You can add risers to it, which you notice they're not on the tier list, and I didn't put that because I was putting bars on here, and they kind of seem to, I didn't want to have them juxtaposed with each other and get them kind of confused as to the benefits. But the Renthal, so I have the Renthal RC High. I replaced the stock 7/8 bar before it ever had an issue. And really all I wanted, well, obviously you're going to fix durability, but I really just wanted a slightly wider, higher grip, but I didn't need it. And I never felt like the bike was inadequate just because of the bar. And I could have rode it and I still kept the bars too. I kept the bars and the adapters to go back down to a 7/8 if something happens to the Renthal. But it does feel nice on the bike, but it's not a must-have item for me as a rider. Please put in the comment section something though that if you have more benefits that for you that are there, and if you think it belongs in B tier or A tier, I can't see it being an S tier. But um, if you have a reason that you could see it being higher, let me know. But for me, they are kind of like a luxury lanyard item until your OEM bar breaks, and then obviously they might could go here. So we'll put them at C, questionable to B. Now lighting, this is honestly, God, I was debating between A tier and S, but I'm gonna tell you right now it's an S tier add-on. If you have your stock DR650 and you can just go on to eBay, and if you don't ride at night, great, but if you're going to travel any distance, the stock headlight is essentially a candle behind a birthday card in the wind, and it's not producing much. It's barely throwing light out. And this is definitely a massive improvement. The JNS headlight, which was plug and play, I did this on a TW200 also. So much brighter, so much of an improvement. I would have to rate this at S tier because an improvement with lighting is also an improvement with life safety. So it gets that's life safety takes it from being an A tier to an S tier for me. It just happens to be that way. Um, God, I can't say enough good things about that. And I did LED because the JNS LED, and with headlights, I do mean LED headlights. I did it with the rear also because it makes your tail lights so much more visible, and that's really huge. I remember one night we were running a call to a fire alarm, and we stopped traffic, and there was a guy on the XR650, and he almost got rear-ended. He was on a dual sport because we stopped traffic in our fire truck, but it was like an OEM bike. I mean, super dull tail light, and LED lights just make you that much more visible. But he almost got rear-ended. He had to accelerate forward to not be rear-ended, in fact. But yes, so lighting, especially your front lights where you can see better, that's an S tier mod. All right, the seats. It's an A. It's an A. It should be an S, right? But there's people that they, came back to riding and they rode hard enduro and they just want to get a farm bike and they bought a DR650, but they just want to be a little bit comfortable. So they may debate me if I put that in the S tier category, but I will tell you this was the very, very first modification I think I ever made. This and foot pegs. But and the foot pegs weren't necessarily, they were just I don't know, I just was commuting a lot and I wanted to stretch, but this was necessary to me. It it changed the bike dramatically, and with the seat concept seats, you have multiple options. You have a short version, which saves you having to lower the bike and sacrifice some inches of suspension travel. You have the regular and the tall, but you also have one that I wanted to try. It was on Morgan's bike, the commuter seat, and that wound up being incredible. But I can't say enough good things about this, and it narrows down in the front that when you stand up on the bike, you have plenty of maneuverable space, maneuverability, room for that. All right, suspension. This is tough. So a lot of people will buy suspension components that are very expensive. I don't have the ability to ride to the degree that a Kojit Mojave would probably be worth it for me, but springs are important. But you can go without suspension some riders, sub 180. You can max your preload. This is a 50-50 bike. So if you're a road dominant rider, I'm going to have to put this in B tier because the cost is pretty up there. The bike, the improvement is outstanding, but it is a circumstantial modification, being that if you are going trail riding often, if you are, doing what skids and stuff does and you're jumping logs, great. But as far as actually needing to put a big suspension on, there are a lot of options within suspensions, just a spring, or you could revalve it yourself, ordering the kit. You can order the Kojit Mojave full blown with the emulators up front and all that. You can go that route, but some people just are fine with their bike the way it is. You can get those Zytomer or Cheetamer uh, front preload adjusters and max out your preload in the rear. And you might just be happy with that. So I'll put it at B. Please, I know there might be some debate on that one. Now the tail tidy. It does two things. Uh, keeps you. A lot of people say it's very intrusive, or it obstructs you a lot on trails. Your OEM tail section, and then the second thing it does is tidy the tail up. But I haven't felt the need for one yet. But it does look good. And it looks, I liked the nice square 80s look on my bike, but I liked it until I saw Morgan's bike with the tail tidy. And then I was like, man, I might have to get one of those. But if you don't ride trails, I don't think it's gonna matter outside of aesthetics. And yeah, but because it has high enough function, I'll put it in C. That was almost going to go to the D tier. And really, only one of these is going to go to the D tier, and it's going to be hand grips. I did not like the waffle grips at first. The stock OEM grips, they did feel uncomfortable. But if you do the ice cream cone way of riding, they actually work incredibly well. And you understand why they're waffle grips is because your fingers fit perfectly into each one of those little waffled segments. So if you're riding it with that mindset and using that proper cone technique, it's actually a great grip. But you can go and remember this also, that if you're newer to the DR, these grips are bonded to the throttle tube. But if you if you want to replace them, you're gonna have to order a new throttle tube, which is so say I did that when I put my Renthal RC high. But if I had my eyes closed with my gloves on and I was squeezing that handle, I wouldn't notice much difference. I wouldn't notice that there was like a billet aluminum throttle tube and that I put these other hand grips. I mean, that's such a negligible difference that it's the only thing I'll probably put in D tier today. Tires, these make or break a lot for the ride. These can be your difference between going to, God, this is debatable right here. Did they go S or A? We're going to say S. But getting off of the stock tires is really important. They're nicknamed the Death Wings. So maybe we move these up here. Any tire that you buy is going to be an improvement over your stock tires. But these tire modifications, you've got the D606, Tusk D Sport, the 2 tracks, the Waypoints, the Kinda Big Blocks. There's so many different ways you can go with tires. I have the Shinko 705s on the bike currently. I can get on the interstate and it's so beautifully smooth. But that's definitely an S tier mod. God, yeah, I didn't want to put that in S tier, but the more you think about it, it's just tires really, really, really affect the dynamic of this bike. Now, windscreens, I'm captain, have a big shield. I've got to have a massive, massive shield. Outside of not being fatigued, really, I don't like a lot of wind on me, but I'm gonna put these in C squarely because there's many people that are just fine riding the bike with nothing at all. And it goes in that way of a tail tidy is like when you get on a trail, opposite of having a tail tidy, when you get on a trail, these windshields actually can get in your way. So yeah, you're a C. Now this, I didn't know this. This is an S tier mod, not because of any life safety function or anything like that, but your gears, your front sprocket changes can completely change the dynamic of the bike. The delivery of torque, the top end, how comfortable it is on the highway, how good it is on a trail. You can completely change the character of a bike simply by changing the sprocket in 5 minutes. The fact that it takes 5 minutes to completely change the character of the bike, that deserves an S tier. It is amazing what sprockets can do. I have a video about that, so I won't spend too much time on that. And then next is the skid plate. The Acherbys plastic, I'm going to go ahead and say it, it's the best one, and it's an A tier mod. And it goes right there. The bike comes and it's just got the frame rails holding the motor, so the bottom case is exposed. I like the plastic because it can take gashes really well. Once you bend metal, you bend metal. But this plastic, when you bend plastic, it retains its shape back again. But it's lighter than the metal cases. And the black looks good. It looks so much better than that polished metal that comes on the bike. Same for the case savers, or the case covers, sorry. These are also, you want these in the A tier. You can ride the bike without them, yes, but you'll be a lot happier if it goes down and these are on when you drop it. These Warp 9 covers, I have a video where I show you I cut a piece of this, but that leaves our tier list pretty much done. Now, I recommend plastic for these covers. If if you like metal, that's your preference. But these are an A tier item. But anyway, that is our list. There's more things that could be on here, and if there's anything else you wanted to see, or if there's anything that you would like to suggest in a certain tier that I haven't mentioned, please feel free to do so in the comments. Thank you, everybody, and again, happy St. Patrick's Day, and I hope you all have a wonderful week. Happy Monday. And until next time, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm Comfy Dad Shoes. I will talk to you soon.